Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Franchise, a podcast that goes where others just simply won't. An unfiltered view of franchising, business, mindset, and everything that we stand for when it comes to supporting a community of small business owners. Join me, Rhiannon, the CEO for James Home Services Australia, and Justin, one of our owners, as we unpack it all with no topics off limits. Today, Justin, we're talking about something that you are just seeing more and more and more and more of. Obviously, your role is speaking to everybody who makes an inquiry about joining our network or exploring the possibility of business ownership. Tell me what you're seeing so often in the last few weeks that it's meant that we just have to talk about this on The Real Franchise.
Yeah. The common theme that's starting to come out from people who I personally really connect with that I think are great for this business or a great fit are people that are being forced through a life change, and it's caused me to go do a bit of research. So particularly like the oil and gas industry, for example, for those listening that aren't aware, that there's been massive projects in those two industries across Australia for the last decade or two, employing all sorts of people in construction and building and development. And now those things are all built, they're all online, and they're running. So all of a sudden there's the stats are 35 to 50,000 jobs, for example, across this country over last year, this year and next year that cease to exist because the construction phase is over. And so a few of those people, which are a lot for us but they're small out of those numbers, 35 to 50,000, are seeing the marketing that you and the team are putting together and are calling and just talking to these people that are going through this tough stage that some of us have been through, where this job is ending. What next? And so I'd love to dive into that a bit more, over the next few minutes just to talk about, because I find in talking to these people, I think culturally for us Aussies, for people that have been raised in this country, I know for myself, and what I'm sensing in a lot of these people I'm talking to is we are raised with this great philosophy that we have to be in a job. We've got responsibilities. We have to be earning money, and you can't be unemployed, right? And so these people I'm speaking to, great work ethic, work's coming in to an end, so I need to jump into another job, right? Yeah. And it's just this. And at the same time, they're sort of sharing the tough things that they've gone through, why they don't like the industry they were working in.
So what do you think it is? Because we're speaking to a few, and I mean, you've said to me in the last couple of weeks, hey, I'm speaking to more and more people who are ex-FIFO or ex-oil and gas industry, particularly seemingly in the last 3 weeks, ex-oil and gas.
Yep.
Why? I mean, it's a small number in the scheme of things that we're speaking to. Why do you think these people are starting to look at self-employment or starting their own business as opposed to just simply jumping into another job?
To be honest, I think for some of them, they haven't been able to find another job, and it's like, I've got to do something, right? It's, to be honest, for a lot of them, it hasn't been an intentional thing. It's been a desperation thing, which I'd honestly love to think that they've seen our merits and, we've got to talk to these guys, right? But to be honest, I think the initial inquiry has been more out of desperation. I haven't been able to find anything. I've got to be earning something for my family. I've seen this. Tell me more.
So that brings up another big question. Why do you think that starting a business, self-employment, isn't seen as equal to being employed by someone else? Why do you think that is so? Because both earn money, right?
Yes. And once again, I think it's a cultural perception that we've been raised in. And look, honestly, I think what I'm going to talk about is true in most cases, that, I can't be self-employed, because to take on your own business, like that's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to go and buy. Like I looked at a coffee business years ago, and it was, I think, $750,000 up front roughly, so, I've got a young family. I can't afford, and that's going to put my house at risk and this and that. And so without investigation, we'd love, most Aussies, I think, would love to be their own boss and in control and, maybe have people working with them, whatever, for them. But that's just unrealistic because of massive upfront cost, which frankly is true in most cases. And so I think for so many of us in Australia, we just go, well, that's just unrealistic. Can't do that at this phase in life. Hopefully after 30 years of working hard in a job and investing, I'll have a nest egg that I can then take on a business and step back and manage. I think for a lot of us in this country, at least, that's sort of more the mindset behind how I'm going to get into self-employment.
Yeah.
And I love what we've put together because I think that challenges that mindset totally.
Totally. Because what it does, and I mean, we're not going to talk necessarily specifically about our subscription model, but for anybody who might have just landed on this video, this is the first time you're ever hearing thing, I'm going to give you a 10-second overview. Our subscription model is basically buy a business for $125 a week. And if you want more information, our website is full of it. And there are numerous podcasts that talk about very specifically about the subscription model. But what our subscription model did when we first launched it 4 years ago, and by the way, nobody else in Australia is offering a business startup under a subscription model. In fact, I still can't find anybody else in the world offering this. And what it really does is it gives accessibility to business ownership to pretty much anybody. And it totally challenges that myth of business ownership is something that I have to work toward. And, I'm going to have $500,000 in the bank to be able to start a business. Not true anymore. We've totally changed that. We totally flipped the tables. Why did we do that? Why did we offer something so accessible? In short, and I'm going to get you to dive into this, but in short, it was about handing people back more control.
Yes.
Wasn't it? Because that's what we're all looking for in life.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And that's sort of what I've been sort of saying to people that I talk to is it all about the money? Some of these people I've been speaking to, they're on a couple of $100K a year and, yes, they've structured their lifestyle around that, but they're away 3 out of 4 weeks in a month or, and they're going, so yes, there's a benefit, big income. But the reason you get a big income is because of the cost.
Yeah.
And it's important when you're in a place of change, you now have an opportunity to really sit back and go, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Am I prepared to pay the cost for that benefit? Or are there other options? Mm-hmm. And what I want to throw out to anyone listening is, there are, and it's not just getting another job.
No.
Right.
And getting another job is normally what our brains default to.
Yes.
We are hardwired to get a job. And I cast my mind back to when I was finishing off high school, going through university, and my careers advisor, this was, only 10 to 15 years ago, which might sound like a long time for some people, but in the scheme of things, isn't that long ago. There was absolutely zero talk of self-employment as employment. Yep. It's almost like we don't see self-employment as being the same. And yet it is, and it's a totally viable option that actually starts to give you more flexibility with your time and your lifestyle and how you work and the balance that you control in there. It puts your revenue earning capabilities back in your control. You choose how much you work. You choose how much you earn. If you only want to earn just enough to get you by, you can do that. If you want to grow an empire, you can do that. You can't do that when you're working for a boss. You're capped. You're always capped on what you can earn, and you've got to make your life work with that. Whereas in a business, you've got full control to actually decide what kind of life you want to lead. And so there are incredible opportunities that come alongside business ownership. And yet I still don't think we're mainstreaming business ownership as a legitimate income for a household, which I hope we can start to challenge a little, particularly with our subscription model.
Yep, absolutely. And it's, yes, our subscription model, people can get in for only $1,000, and that's great up front. But I want to encourage people that are listening, do your research. Check us out, because even if you're in one of those high-paying jobs, the average hourly rate across our network is higher than the average hourly rate in those sort of jobs. So I know we have to be careful about numbers and stuff we quote, but that's the reality that we can back up and verify. So yes, it takes hard work to achieve anything in life. And I think for a lot of us, getting into another job, is just maybe a comfort zone thing that, like you were saying, it's just easy to jump back in. But I just want to what's, I guess, on my heart from listening to so many stories over the last couple of weeks is take the opportunity while you've got it to really have a good hard look at your life and what do you want to get out of it? Where do you want to go with it? And is this actually delivering that? Because we got one shot at this, right?
Yes.
It's not trying to be too deep and philosophical here, but there is a cost to your family and your kids. And when you're in that sort of industry, and those that work in it, no, I don't have to go into details. Whereas you can work from home, you can still earn good money. It doesn't happen overnight. But, this is something we do, on average every week now we start new business.
Yeah.
We do it all the time.
Yeah. I think that what holds a lot of people back, I think probably a lot of people know in the back of their mind that starting their own business is an option, right? Even though it's not mainstream, it's an option. People know that. But I think that there's one main thing that holds people back, because we speak to people all the time, and when we say to them, have you been thinking about starting your own business for a while?
Yeah.
Like the average length of time that someone's already been thinking about this is probably like 12 months, on average, which means some people have been thinking about it for years and years and years and years. And some people just had a really bad day at work the day before and they thought, you know what, I ain't staying around for this for the rest of my life. They had that instant realization. But I think there's one big thing that holds people back even more than the affordability, and I think that's fear.
Yes.
And so I'm going to throw back to you, but can you explain, most people are worried about what happens if I fail? What happens if this doesn't work? How do I attract customers? How do I generate a revenue? How am I going to know if this is going to work, right? All really valid, normal questions. If you're not asking yourself these questions before you jump into business, you're a little too blasé about this. But what we've designed is a very, very highly supported business startup system. Can you just give us a little bit of a high-level overview of what we actually do to help people start businesses in case someone listening has those very same questions? How is this going to work?
Yeah. We've just spent with our team, literally yesterday, we were on a couple of hours on a meeting with them. We've just updated our what we call our accelerated startup program. And this has come about through years of learning, of starting dozens and dozens of new businesses. So we have learned what we need to be doing, and we've learned what the business owner needs to be doing even before day one. And this is where we're really different, is we actually start setting people's businesses up, the things that need to be happening to give them an accelerated start long before they start.
Yeah.
And what that does is accelerate their start. That's what we call the accelerated startup program. So the sorts of things, to answer your question, that we do, it's things like web pages, it's things like Google pages, it's things like the marketing. Like we spend, as you know, thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing, on online, on signing vehicles, on uniforms, on brochures, on business cards, on all this sort of stuff that if you're starting an own business on your own,
you just can't access all of that. Yeah. Yep. It's a mind.
And it's just it's a set thing we do every week on average, right? So it's business as normal for us, and we have processes and systems for that deliver a set outcome. And, I know you and I are both so proud of our success rate because it's incredibly high, like near the 100% success over the last couple of years since we've rolled that out.
Yeah.
That's why people should join a good franchise that has good systems, delivers high results at a very low risk.
Yeah.
That's the benefit. And that deals with fear. You're asking me, sorry, about fear.
Yeah.
That's the way to handle fear, is to get information, check out numbers, check out what are the processes and systems.
Yeah. I think that when people think about business ownership, they default to thinking about DIY, do it yourself, figure it out yourself, which is daunting because it's an enormous task to start a business and to do it successfully. And the odds are, if you don't have support, you are very highly likely to fail. It's something like 80% fail in the first 3 years in Australia. It is nothing like that in our network. And I think that we're held back by this fear that it won't work for good reason, because we see the stats. It often doesn't work when you do it yourself. But I think what we aren't talking about very much in Australia right now is the benefit of franchise networks, because for the past 10 years, I think we've heard so many negative stories about franchise networks in the media that we've actually kind of conditioned ourselves to associate a franchise network with negativity. But I want just simply to throw this out there. The media have a job to do, and that is report on things of interest or relevance to the general public. So if a big business fails, they report on it. If something happens in government, they report on it. Whatever is going on overseas that's relevant to our economy, they report on it, And so they report on failure in every industry, including franchising. So what you're hearing is, the very top 1% of things that don't go well, just like you hear about that everywhere else in the media. And so the importance here, and the point I'm making, is what you hear in the media is not representative of the entire industry.
Correct. Yes.
And what we've worked really hard on in the last few years is developing a foolproof recipe for starting a business. Yep. You can come to us with no experience and very little past knowledge of business ownership, and we will teach you from scratch how to build a business in the exact same way that if you've never baked a cake before but you've got a good recipe, and if you just simply follow those steps, you can expect a cake out of the oven in an hour and a half's time. Our system is now so highly refined that if you follow the steps that we train you in and we guide you and support you in, you can expect a business that is meeting your targets at the end of that. And so I think that this fear we have has been compounding for years and years and years, and exacerbated by negative media coverage of our industry. But I really want to start to actually have a much bigger conversation about the benefits of franchising, because look, you outsource getting your hair cut, you outsource selling your house, you outsource getting your tax done, right? You outsource all the big decisions in your life, like how to invest money, where to bank your money, except you're going to start a business and think you can do it without support and be successful. Franchising is just outsourcing your business startup to experts who know how to do it really, really well.
Yeah. What's really funny, all those industries you just mentioned, haircuts and whatever, so many of them that we deal with every day are franchises.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Ironically, all the examples you gave, the majority of franchises in our industries in Australia. But you're absolutely right. And once again, weighing up that cost benefit. The cost of failure. I think all of us in this country probably know friends or family that, they had a go and it didn't go so good. We all have those and know those stories of people that tried to DIY and it didn't work out. Yeah. And I want to encourage people that that's the benefit of a franchise is, when I looked at going into my own business and joining James myself 16 years ago, it was, I can't afford to make the mistakes. I had a young family. I can't afford for this to fall over. I want to have my own business, right? But I can't afford to fail. And that's the beauty of having a good franchise that genuinely cares about people behind you. And I want to encourage people. There's some great businesses out there on the market. Do your homework, though. Make sure that their structures, that their focus is on caring for the individual. Because if that care isn't there, and if it's not genuine, and if you can't find evidence of that, I would say steer clear of it.
Being sold something.
Yes.
Exactly. And I think we've actually got a Real Franchise podcast episode that is titled How to Find a Good Franchise, because there are lots of really, really amazing franchise networks out there in Australia. We hope that people see us as in that top tier of amazing franchise networks, but we're certainly not the only ones there. And so, if the services that we offer in cleaning and lawn mowing aren't of interest to you, that doesn't mean there aren't amazing franchise networks out there that might be able to help you.
Yes.
Yep. I think that is a natural place to leave this episode. Thank you for a really open discussion. If you've been listening and if you're in that position, if you're in a job that has an end date, if you're in an industry that has an end date, if you're facing redundancy, or if you are just exhausted from the grind of FIFO-style work, then I want to leave you with the message that jumping straight into another job is not your only option.
Yes.
And starting a business can be an excellent option. And there is loads and loads of ways that you can do that in a supported way that help to manage that risk that we perceive to be present when starting a business. Yep. So I hope that's been helpful for anyone listening. And I hope that you might join us sometime very soon for the next episode of The Real Franchise.